Welcome everybody to our Governance and Transparency Committee meeting for April of 2023. Councillors in attendance are myself, Councillor Madsen, Councillor Harding, Councillor Doyle and Councillor Milligan. We've got one councillor participating online today and I think there's a leave of absence for another. We'll conduct the vote for the councillor online, Councillor Jonick. So I'm happy to move that motion there. That's before us on the screen, that Councillor Nicole Jonick can attend the meeting via audio link, seconded by Mayor Harding. Any discussion on that? There being no discussion, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? That's unanimous. Welcome aboard, Councillor Jonick.
Thank you.
Then, furthermore, we have a leave of absence this morning for our other committee member, Councillor Kunzelman. So I'll move that a leave of absence be granted for Councillor Kunzelman for today's meeting. I'll seek a seconder, seconded by Councillor Milligan. Any discussion on that this morning? There being no discussion, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? That's unanimous in the room. Councillor Jonick, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
Well, that's unanimous and carried. We'll start off today's proceedings with an acknowledgement of country. Ipswich City Council respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners as custodians of the land upon which we meet. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging as the keepers of the traditions, cultures and stories of a proud people. Do any councillors this morning have a declaration of interest to make on matters on the agenda? There being no declarations, we'll move along to the confirmation of minutes. I'll seek a mover for those from the floor, moved by Councillor Milligan and seconded by Mayor Harding. Any discussion on those minutes this morning? There being no discussion, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour of adopting. It's unanimous in the room. Councillor Jonick, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
That's unanimous and carried. Item 2 today, our first officer's report, is the proposed fees and charges to apply from 1 July 2023. Are there any questions of the relevant officer on this matter today? There being no questions, I'll seek a mover from the floor. That's moved by Councillor Doyle and seconded by Councillor Milligan. Any discussion this morning on those proposed fees and charges? There being no discussion, I'll proceed to the vote. Those in favour of adopting the recommendation? That's unanimous in the room. Councillor Jonick, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
That's unanimous and carried. Our first procurement matter today is for a ticketing software platform and extension to contract. Do we have any questions of the relevant officer this morning? There being no questions of the relevant officer, I'll seek a mover for recommendation A through C, as procurement matters always multi-part. Moved by Councillor Doyle and seconded by Councillor Milligan. Any discussion on that matter this morning? All right, we'll take it as read. Those in favour of adopting A through C? That's unanimous in the room. Councillor Jonick, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
That's unanimous and carried. Our next procurement matter this morning is the Infor Pathway Local Government Platform. Any questions this morning on this matter? There being no questions, I'll seek a mover for recommendation A through D on the floor. Moved by Mayor Harding, seconded by Councillor Milligan. Any discussion on that one this morning? There being no discussion, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour of adopting A through D? That's unanimous in the room. How do you vote, Councillor Jonick?
Affirmative.
That's unanimous and carried. Item 5 today is the Human Resource Information System, HRIS SAP. There's another 4-part recommendation. Any questions this morning of the relevant officer on that one? There being no questions, I'll seek a mover from the floor for recommendation A through D. It's moved by Councillor Milligan and seconded by Councillor Doyle. Any discussion this morning before we proceed to the vote? There being no discussion, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour of adopting A through D? That's unanimous in the room. Councillor Jonick, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
That's unanimous and carried. Item 6 this morning is the extension of the Transparency and Integrity Hub Open Ipswich platform contract. Do we have any questions this morning of the relevant officer? There being no questions, I'll seek a mover for recommendation A through C. from the floor, moved by Mayor Harding. I'll seek a seconder. Seconded by Councillor Doyle. Any discussion this morning? There being no discussion, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those who are in favour of adopting A through C? That's unanimous in the room. How do you vote, Councillor Johnick?
Affirmative.
That's unanimous and carried. Next report is something that I've been very happy to see arrive. I've been discussing with property services officers for a while. So it's a report on freehold and trustee leases owned or managed by council due for expiry in the next 12 months. I think they've done a great job and it's great to see. I'll first see if anybody has questions. Mayor Harding.
Thank you, Chair.
Call on the relevant property services officer in attendance.
Good morning. My name's Kerry Parrott, Senior Property Officer. I'll be answering any questions relating to specific leases.
Alicia Reed, Acting Property Services Manager. Just if there's any further questions in relation to how we operate.
Thank you, through the Chair. I won't go into specific leases because obviously it's in the confidential attachment. I guess my main questions were there are a number of leases that have expired, and I commend you, Chair, for the work on this, to have this located all together in one document as well. There are a number of leases here that have expired. I guess I'm asking how will you be engaging the councillors, myself, for our views on different community groups and other things that we've sort of heard around the perhaps the last 3 years on usage of these facilities. So
We do act under instruction from the asset owners,
yes.
So that can be CCED or IED. So I think there's, depending on what sort of planning is happening with those facilities, to initiate a new lease, it would be brought forward to committee as a new interest in land. So it comes through as a new lease in the Governance and Transparency Committee.
Okay. In that case, may I ask, I guess, for the report, if you should have I guess, who's the asset owner, which division would be handy?
Yep.
Thank you. That's my only question. Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Any further questions this morning? There being no questions, thank you very much. Proceeding on, I'll seek a mover for our one recommendation there for the report to be received and contents noted. Moved by Councillor Doyle, seconded by Councillor Milligan. Any discussion this morning? I personally just wanted to discuss it. So this is a bit of a evolving thing. I think we all need to set as an elected body how frequently we'd like to see this report. The important thing about something like this for me is council doesn't have an unlimited asset base or asset pool to assist the community. So it's something that we should review on a rolling basis to ensure public benefits arising from our holdings. So please think about it, take a look at the list, think about how often you want to see it and how we can engage with it. There's a great opportunity there to provide guidance to the organisation. I think there's been some instances with council-owned properties where there hasn't really been any guidance, so things have lagged a bit, and more broadly we can look at more strategic aims on what we get out of that base.
Thank you,
Councillor
Chair.
Doyle?
And I, thank you for your work on this, and I concur that a more coordinated and strategic approach is well received by us. We're working in the community every day with residents, and many of which attend and support some of these organisations at these facilities, and we do get feedback, both good and bad. So it's a great opportunity to inform I guess, the planning and the strategic direction with the assets going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. I should just add that I would like to acknowledge the property services section. They're a great team of council officers, and they certainly rip through the work. If people, such as us, gave them more clearer and timelier advice, I think they'd certainly rip through the work even quicker. So just acknowledging them this morning. That being the case, I'll put the matter to the vote. Those in favour of adopting the recommendation, that's unanimous in the room. Councillor Jonick, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
That's unanimous and carried. Item 8 today is a trustee lease, a proposed trustee lease to the City of Ipswich Pipe Band. Any questions for the relevant officers on this trustee lease? That being the case, I'll look for a mover for recommendation A through D. Moved by Councillor Milligan and seconded by Mayor Harding. Any discussion this morning on this lease?
I'll just say I've had obviously council provided a grant for an upgrade to the toilets there, and they're looking really great. And it's great to see that this organisation is continuing in that building.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I know we have some planned works, obviously, within Limestone Park in our Capital Works program, and I know additional lighting is much needed throughout the park, but specifically around this building, and they're very much looking forward to that. So,
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Any further discussion this morning? There being no discussion, I'll put recommendations A through D to the vote. Those in favour of adopting? That's unanimous in the room. Councillor Jonick, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
That's unanimous and carried. Item 9 today is the new lease over part of 102 Champions Way, Willowbank to Ipswich Kart Club Incorporated. Any questions this morning of the relevant officers? There being no questions at this stage, I'll look for a mover for recommendation A through C. Moved by Councillor Doyle and seconded by Councillor Milligan. Any discussion on that matter this morning? There being no discussion, I'll proceed to the vote. Those in favour of adopting recommendations A through C. That's unanimous in the room. Councillor Jonick, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
That's unanimous and carried. Item 10 this morning is a repeal of previous council decision and a proposed new trustee lease over 135 Brisbane Terrace, Goodna, to the Goodna and Districts Rugby League Football Club Incorporated. Are there any questions this morning on this matter? Mayor Harding?
Thank you, Chair.
Call on the relevant officer.
Carrie Parrott, Senior Property Officer.
Thank you, Ms. Parrott. And thank you, Chair. Just looking at in regards to this, I can see this is just for the clubhouse only because the fields dealt with. So this, but the terms are changing, I guess, from $1 a year, from what I can gather, to $11,250 a year. Is that correct? Or no? Or no?
No.
Okay. So what's their current?
Their current rent is $3,400 plus GST per annum.
Yep.
And that was based on 1% of the unimproved capital value back when the lease was originally signed in 2012.
Yep.
And they've had 3% increases since that time.
Okay, so are you saying the formula has stayed the same, just the land value has gone up? Is that the... or no?
They have moved up to the next category of 3% of the unimproved value.
Mm-hmm.
We did negotiate that because it was such a significant increase. And the reason why they've moved up a category is because they have increased their improvements over the land there, hence why they've moved up a category.
Right. Now, I realise that they have a gaming and liquor licence. Has that changed at all, or do they have more gaming machines or anything like that, or it's still the same? Or?
Still the same,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Ms. Parrott.
No further questions this morning. Thank you, Ms. Parrott. As it's a bit of a property matter, I'll seek a mover for recommendations A through E this morning, moved by Councillor Doyle and seconded by Councillor Milligan. Any discussion this morning on that, Mayor Harding?
If my chair, as you know, because I CC'd you on the email, but just to reiterate that, I guess from a council perspective, the annual maintenance bill for council for the clubhouse itself is just over 28,000 a year. And obviously for the field and change rooms, which is not part of this, but I just think it's an adjoining property, is 22,597 a year as well. So just letting people know that so the council's still providing support for that venue and that facility.
Thank you, Mayor. Any further discussion this morning? There being no further discussion, I'll seek a vote for items A through E. Those in favour of adopting? That's unanimous in the room. Councillor Jonik, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
That's unanimous and carried. Our last item on today's agenda is a supplementary report which came a bit later due to the nature of what's involved. It's a budget amendment for this year. Everybody's seen that? That's good. So there's a recommendation there before us, but before that, has anybody got any questions? Mayor Harding, call on the CFO.
Morning, Deputy Mayor, Mayor, Councillors. Jeff Keach, Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you. Through the Chair. On page 4, Mr Keach, under operational expenses, it talks about employee expenses going up by 3.9% or $4.8 million.
Yes.
Or forecast for that to be.
Yes.
I note that $2 million is supporting undertaking repair work related to the flood recovery. Will those costs be covered by QRA?
Yes, the majority of those should. There will be some in the early stages, as you're aware, where if it's our own time in overtime, it's claimable. If it's our own staff in normal time, it's not claimable.
Yep.
So there will be elements of that which is not claimable back from QRA and other elements that will be, which when you look at the totality, there is a gap between what we actually have incurred in costs and what we anticipate to get back from QRA overall. And that's made up of some of those costs which aren't claimable, but also the trigger points that we've got to contribute the first contribution amount for both events.
Right. Yep. What kind of percentage do you think of that $2 million that we'll be able to get back?
I would have to check. I think, 50% sort of probably rough numbers, I think, would be a guide.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Thank you, Chair.
Any further questions this morning? Thank you, Mr Keach.
Thank you.
Seek a mover for the recommendation before us this morning that the proposed amended 2022-2023 budget and long-term financial forecast as detailed in attachments 1, 2, 3 and 4 be adopted. Moved by Mayor Harding, seconded by Councillor Milligan. Any discussion this morning on those amendment papers? There being no discussion, I'll put the recommendation to the vote. Those in favour of adopting? It's unanimous in the room. Councillor Jonik, how do you vote?
Affirmative.
That's unanimous and carried. I have no notices of motion or indeed matters arising to deal with this morning, so I'll declare the meeting closed at 10:49 a.m.